Did you know that 33 million teen vapers globally think that because e-cigarettes don't cause cancer, like conventional cigarettes, they must be all good? By conveying the hazards of nicotine vaping as 5-minute short stories or microlearning, and spoken in the simplest language possible, Safeguard is about youth, for youth, and in the language of youth, Teen Vaping Awareness Mission. So, what are you waiting for? Listen, learn, quit.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Safeguard, the teen vaping awareness microlearning platform, where I seek to take the complex science of adolescent vaping and simplify it down to a teen-appropriate level. But today, in our final microlearning video, we're bringing in a different cohort of people to join the teens on our adventures of the day. And this is the adults, whether that be parents, guardians, coaches, pediatricians, etc. We'll talk just as much today about teens as about these adults and about how they can help teens in their process of quitting vaping. And we'll talk about exactly how we're going to do that in a quick sec. But before we do, this is the final video of our 9-video microlearning series, and we've come a very, very long way since we've begun this series in Story 1. Story 1 itself focused on the history of smoking and the invention of the e-cigarette. Story 2 talked about the differences between smoking and vaping. Story 3 was that organ-by-organ analysis of the hazards of using an e-cigarette. Story 4 talked about the tactics that large corporations use to lure minors to their vape products. Story 5 was all about epidemiology and the global and US prevalence of vaping. Story 6 talked about vaping from a social lens, talking about the social triggers or social determinants that drive teens to vaping, and this is key to our discussion today as well. Story 7 talked about anti-vaping legislation by the government, and Story 8 talked about research to create drugs promoting vaping cessation or stopping vaping. Today in Story 9, we'll be addressing the D of the Safeguard acronym, the final letter of the acronym, and that'll all be about directing your attention, a call to action to youth and to nurturing adults. We'll take the time to understand the social triggers of vaping a little bit more, and this will allow near and dear family members to flag at-risk youth by seeing their circumstances. And then we'll talk about the need for elders to demonstrate patience, persistence, and create a non-judgmental environment for teens to gradually quit vaping. So that's the sort of two-part agenda of today's video. So to start off a little bit by recapping some of our discussion from Story 6 about why kids, or rather why teens vape. So here are 6 examples of social triggers of teen vaping that we delved deeper into in Story 6. The first of these being racial and cultural factors, the second being mental health and academic stress, which leads kids to try to cope with that by vaping. The third one is socioeconomic status. We talked about there being more vape shops when the socioeconomic status of a given area is less. We talked about neighborhood factors having to do with vaping. We talked about social influences and peer pressure, particularly with social media and how much that's used by teens, and about family dynamics and how all of these factors can influence teen vaping. However, the sort of new bit of info that we wanted to add today is that a clear-cut sort of cause and effect of each trigger is very hard to establish. It's difficult to say something that a teenager's neighborhood has changed and they've moved to a homeless shelter, for example, and that'll immediately lead to them vaping. It's something that vaping is a complex behavior that's driven by a matrix of different life events. And hence, adults, when understanding why their teen might be vaping, have to evaluate the situation through a more complex, multifactorial lens, understanding how these factors sort of work together simultaneously to drive teens towards using e-cigarettes. So now we'll be focused on a specific case study of how this might actually play out and the different factors that might be at play. So a 16-year-old in this example lives in a shelter with his mother. His mom is a grocery clerk, and he, the teen, goes to a Title I public school. And Title I refers to an economically disadvantaged public school. The family is on SNAP benefits, or food stamps, and his mother tries hard to give him what he needs for basic well-being, including around $10 of pocket money every week. The teen sneaks out of class daily and vapes, and he uses his pocket money and borrows money from friends even to buy e-cigarettes each week. His homeroom teacher, his Vigilant homeroom teacher, sees him cutting classes every day, and when he is in class, there's a fruity stench in his quotes. She meets his mom during parent-teacher conferences, and she sees his mom struggle. This perplexes the teacher of how a teen whose family can't afford food would spend his money on buying vape pens each week. So why might this be, you might ask? If the teacher was to go back into this teen's home or into this teen's living environment, the teacher would uncover quite a few reasons why this might be. This could be perhaps because of the dilapidated neighborhood that the teen might be in, which would lead to there being a lack of local laws potentially surrounding or combating e-cigarette use. This could also lead to there being multiple vape shops in this neighborhood, as we talked about, that higher socioeconomic status tends to decrease the number of vape shops and vice versa. So perhaps because of him being in a socially disadvantaged neighborhood or going to a socioeconomically disadvantaged school, there might be multiple vape shops. And this could lead to other teens vaping around those vape shops, which are sort of social influences driving this teen towards vaping. If the teacher was to then delve into the child's grades and how this adolescent's grades have changed over time, they might see falling grades after moving to this temporary home, to this shelter. They could realize that the parent might have substance abuse in many of these cases. And this together would lead to substantially poor mental health for both the mother and the son, and potentially extreme loneliness. So you could see how in this one scenario, so many complex factors that hit so many different aspects of those sort of 6 social triggers that we talked about before are all playing simultaneously to drive this teen towards using vapes. So, what are some behavioral and physical signs that vigilant adults can look out for in terms of actually spotting that there's something going on in terms of the teen vaping? Behaviorally, a parent can look for frequent unexplained bathroom breaks, intense irritability and mood swings when they're unable to use their e-cigarette, sudden cravings or restlessness during long classes or meals, a drop in academic focus or a need to constantly leave class and take breaks, increased secrecy and increased guarding of possessions, and lastly, avoiding adults and sort of shutting oneself off from adults more often. In terms of the physical signs that vigilant adults can look for in these types of scenarios, one example are the sort of sweet, fruity, or minty smells on clothes or breath in the cases of the Juul and Elf Bar products that we've talked about extensively in past videos, a dry mouth and chronic thirst, persistent throat clearing, an unusual fatigue or headaches, nausea, or lethargy, which are all symptoms of being nic sick, which is a word used for being sick as a result of using nicotine products, sudden bursts of activity, and interestingly, alternating patterns of activity and lethargy over the course of the day, shortness of breath even after the most minor exertion, loss of sleep, and loss of appetite are all some physical signs that adults can be looking out for to see if a teen might be vaping. But if someone was to spot one or more of these signs, what comes next? How can they convince the teen to try quitting? First and foremost, they should start with curiosity, not accusation. Asking questions like, a lot of teens are stressed in turn to vaping. Has that been true for you? What do you like about vaping and what don't you like? Etc. Then the adult should go into asking questions that promote reflection and introspection on the part of their teen. Whether that be, do you feel vaping is helping or hurting your stress? What would be the hardest part of stopping and the easiest part? If you ever decided to cut back, how could I support you? And then using teen-relevant health data to lead with facts and lead with science. That nicotine changes brain function, or vaping increases anxiety rather than relieving it, as many teens might think initially. It's also important for the adult to potentially highlight short-term benefits of vaping that are sort of easily understandable to teens, whether that be better skin and reduced acne, improved stamina, better quality of sleep, and a happier mood overall. And above all, it's truly important for adults who are trying to convince teens to try quitting their e-cigarette addiction to use a sort of non-judgmental frame to what they say. Saying things like, I'm not here to punish you, I care about you, I want to help you feel in control again, we are in this together. Sort of promoting a lack of judgment and a collaboration between the adult and the teen in order to convince them to try quitting and truly get through to them. And lastly, wanted to highlight some evidence-based ways that adults can promote in order to help their teens quit vaping. Behavioral strategies are super helpful, whether that be delaying daily vape times in 10-minute increments every few days, creating times of day that are specifically no vaping times, substituting times of excessive cravings with mint or gum or toys, etc. Seeking pharmacologic support is also super important, whether that be over-the-counter medications like nicotine gum or patches, Zyban, which is a medication for anxiety or depression associated with vaping, and cytisinicline, which we talked about as the world's first vaping cessation specific product. When that's approved, also could be a very interesting and useful bit of pharmacologic support. And lastly, behavioral therapy, whether that be therapist-aided curricula for e-cigarette cessation, journaling to identify the triggers and pressures that might be involved driving someone towards vaping, and even apps like This Is Quitting or Quit Start that are designed specifically for e-cigarette cessation. So those are 3 examples of different ways or different strategies that can be used by these adults to encourage their teens to quit vaping and to end their e-cigarette addiction. So as usual, we'll conclude with our final learning objectives quiz. So here are our 5 questions of the day. In story 9, who is being asked to stay vigilant of teen vapors? What are some social determinants that vigilant adults can use to flag teen vapors? What does not work to wean teens of e-cigarettes? Aside from looking for social triggers of vaping, what are all the physical and behavioral signs of vaping that adults can pick up on? What are some good strategies that adults can give teens to taper their e-cigarette use? So those are our 5 multiple choice questions of the day. I'll give you guys a little bit of time to pause the video and attempt all 5, and then we'll check back in and look at the answer key. Okay, hope you guys have all had the opportunity to attempt the 5 questions. Now let's take a look at the answers. So here are answers to the learning objectives quiz that you can see. I'll give you the opportunity to check your work. And to conclude our 9 video series today, I wanted to thank you guys so much for following us on this 9-part journey tailored for teens to help us demystify e-cigarettes and nicotine vaping more broadly. We can continue to stay in touch through Instagram, through YouTube, through our Safeguard Vape Free Teens email address as well. If you guys have any additional questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you so much for taking this journey. I really appreciate you sticking around and journeying with us through this 9-part discussion of teen vaping. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.